everyone, it's Natalie. Happy summer. I am getting ready to move. Yes, one of my least favorite things to do, but I'm going to flip it because I know that it's a chance to get decluttered and organized. So I'm looking at it as not as much of something I hate, but more of an opportunity. My guest today is Katy Wells. She's the host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast, and we're going to talk about the impact of clutter on our lives because it's more than just the space it takes up in your house. Katy shares her personal journey, a very powerful one, of overcoming clutter. And she explains how it can affect our mood, our emotions, and even our relationships. She emphasizes the importance of decluttering as a holistic and ongoing process rather than just a one-time event. And I want to tell you before we get started about a free resource that I created to help you with your relationships. It's called Loving Others Well. It's a 21-day devotional that helps you love those around you even more than you are right now. It gives you a guide to doing that with scripture. You will find that on my website at natalietysdal.com/resources. Are you ready to get organized and decluttered? I know I am. Let's get started with the podcast today with my guest, Katy Wells. Katy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk all things clutter. I'm kind of obsessed. So
I can see that. So that's where I want to start. In my more than 2 years now of podcasting, I have not focused on clutter. And what I find really interesting about what you do, which I love, by the way, and I follow you and listen to your podcast, is clutter we often think is physical. We think, oh, all that stuff on my counter, but it can be so much more than that.
you're so right. And I think now that, Marie Kondo, the minimalists, and all these other really amazing experts in this field have come out with shows and books, I think that's really opened the world for people to see just how impactful our physical environments are. And the reality is, and this took me a long time to learn, is that we are so intricately wired and connected to our surroundings. And when we're in a home that is filled with clutter and stuff we don't use and stuff that isn't a reflection of us and stuff that's hindering us instead of helping us, that's going to, Natalie, impact our mood, our emotions, our thoughts, like our actions or inability to take actions. That impacts our time, our energy. And instead of our homes being a refuge in, let's be honest, the world can feel kind of crazy and out of control sometimes. Instead of it being this refuge, this safe, cozy space where we can come into and relax at the end of a long, busy day or work week or anything like that, for most people who are struggling with clutter, it's like walking into another full-time job. More stress, more frustration, more overwhelm. And it's like, we can't catch a break. And so decluttering, I used to roll my eyes when I would hear people say, this is before I had my own life-changing experience, that decluttering can change your life. I thought, okay, how? Well, this is how, right? And once I started to experience that, I said, oh, I get it. I finally get it.
Okay, so let's rewind. How did you get into this super specific thing of helping people with clutter?
My story starts all the way back. It was Black Friday, November, I think 24th, 2017. And surprisingly, it didn't start in my home. This moment, I was in a hospital room and I was waiting to hear from the doctors to hear if my husband, Andrew, was going to live. We had just come out of a car accident, got shuffled to the hospital, and then these minutes, hours, and what felt like a lifetime of waiting, I was completely reevaluating my life. And as you can imagine, it was it was a trying time. And this moment, this car accident came at a time where I already thought I was at my rock bottom. I was a mom to 2 young boys. They were, maybe 2 and 1 at the time, and was struggling with a lot of things that a lot of caregivers and mothers struggle with: exhaustion, stress, overwhelm, right? Just like I talked about, I had stress at work and stress at home, a lot of it being clutter induced. And all of that certainly contributed, hindsight 2020, to a lot of the depression, chronic anxiety I was feeling. And I think the worst thing about this season in life was I just felt like such a failure. as a mom, a wife, a housekeeper, because I couldn't, quote unquote, keep a home, right? When we want to solve our issues, our clutter issues, which I knew I had, I hopped on Pinterest and I looked at Home and Gardens magazine, and I thought, this is the home I should be able to create for my family, but I'm not able to. And that feeling of like a failure felt like such, shame and embarrassment. And I wouldn't even let people step into my home. And really, it took having this car accident for me to understand that I needed to make my home work for me and not against me. And in a time where my sons and my husband needed me most, after waiting in that hospital, the doctor finally came in and said, it's going to be a long road ahead of recovery. He had a broken neck, broken shoulder, punctured lung, came millimeters from losing my husband. I went home after this long, long day, and I felt like for the first time saw my home for what it really was. It was a chaotic disaster. And my girlfriends brought me home. We stepped into my house. And of course, I didn't have time like I would have on a normal day to shove everything behind closed doors, right? And we walked into my home, every single surface area, cluttered, toys, all the things. And part of it was, yes, the season of life I was in, but it was also such a reflection of my inner turmoil that I was experiencing, right? And it just everything fed into one another. And I'll never forget, like, the feeling of humiliation just struck me. I felt like this heat rising in me, and that humiliation and shame for my friends seeing like my home, and then that feeling quickly turned to anger. I was like, I can't believe I'm devoting energy, or I even care about what these women think about me in my home right now. I need to be focusing on my family and my husband and my kiddos. And that was the moment where all of a sudden my why became big enough, and my excuses for being too busy and it's not a great time and I don't want to deal with it right now type thing. I said, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I have to commit. And so, like a lot of us commit on these journeys, I reached for all the traditional declutter strategies. And it's like, I wish this were the part of the story where I was like, yes, I did the books, I did the methods, I did the spark joy, and everything fell into place and I lived happily ever after, right? But the unicorns and rainbows didn't come for a long time. And I just found that so many of the methods and advice that was given at that time, and is still very popular, didn't resonate with me as a busy mom who didn't have 6 elusive hours in my day to go through my wardrobe in one foul swoop. I had 10 minutes before the baby woke up from his nap. And through this process, I really got to the roots of my clutter and just began to realize that this has to be viewed as a holistic, experience, like the holistic decluttering, not just like a one-off once a year purge, right? And that's when I started to see a lift in my depression, anxiety, when I started to have more time and energy. And I really feel like through that experience, I know without a doubt, I gained my motherhood back. And I also gained my old personality back. I uncovered like the bubbly personality I used to have before I was so bogged down with all this chaos from the clutter. And it's just been really a beautiful journey to continue on, right? I still have to do what I need to do to stay in maintenance, but how clutter can impact our relationships with our partners. Again, that I have the energy to ask my husband, like, how was your day now? And sit and play with my kids and read extra bedtime stories. And that really closed the gap on this expectation of motherhood I had and my reality. And it made motherhood and life for me so much more beautiful. And I know we have our own journeys with decluttering, but that's just a few ways it's made a big difference in why I do what I do.
I often find in my years of interviewing people how they got to their why and their passion and their thing is through hardship. And it's always so hard to see in the hardship, in the turmoil, in the trauma like you went through.
Yes.
But here you are, you're helping people declutter their lives. You do it on your podcast, on your social media, all of that. So let's get to some ways to help people. I will agree. It's not an overnight fix. And for some reason, it seems to be a little bit, tell me how you feel about this, generational. Like, we like stuff. Stuff makes us feel, I don't know, maybe it's the sentiment with the stuff being the baby's clothes, or I'm looking around my room going, oh, it's that thing my daughter gave me, or, years ago I bought that first microphone when I was podcasting, and oh, it's precious to me. Like,
Yes.
why do we hold on, and how do we start to declutter and get rid of things?
I think one thing I learned along the journey, and this is what really frustrates me and a lot of people, is that traditional advice is just follow this checklist. Step 1, pull out everything off of your office desk where you might keep some of these things. Step 2, if it doesn't spark joy or you don't use it, let it go. And then we're like, okay, makes sense on paper, but we're not actually able to execute that. And that can be for a big nuance of reasons. But, I think from a stuff perspective, I also like to embrace and tell people, like, as you said, it's not an overnight shift. I mean, the biggest change that happens in the decluttering journey happens between your ears, right? Not actually in your home. Yes, your home will look and feel better, but this is what's going to get you there. And I think understanding and being able to more objectively look at your stuff, and it is going to be really fruitful. As in, hey, I remember when my daughter gave me this. Oh, she was just a little girl. Like, it sparks memories. And that thing on its own is neutral. And we just tend to assign meaning to things. That can be for comfort. That can be because it's an actual memory in our head and our heart. But I don't think that's where it stops, right? I think if we can go, hey, I'm going to honor this, I'm going to keep this, it serves a purpose by providing that memory, I think that's okay. And I think that's part of the conversation too, that it feels hard when we're trying to declutter because so much advice out there goes, well, if you can't display it or make it meaningful or, showcase it in some way, shape, or form, you shouldn't keep it. Or you shouldn't be sentimental about something your kid gave you. And I'm like, of course I am. Like, I have things on my desk. I have a picture of my son and these little like Mother's Day flowers they drew in kindergarten. They're like second and first grade now. And I might be keeping those for years. And I think we can keep those things and honor those things. But if we focus in on what we love about those and appreciate about those, sometimes on the flip side of the coin, it can also help us recognize, Natalie, like the other stuff that really doesn't matter. And maybe it doesn't hold that meaning or that value or that sentimentality. Or maybe it's just not providing function. It's not serving you and your family right now. So I think the beauty in focusing on the things that are really meaningful to you and sentimental can help you identify what's not and inspire you to let go of some of that extra stuff that's distracting you from the sentimental items or your family or your hobbies and all the things you care about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go through, if we can. I want to give people very practical ways to start to make change. So I walk in to my okay, so I'm gonna start from the beginning for me. I pull in my garage, the garage. It's like, and I was thinking, then we go the mudroom and the kitchen, like these every step of the way. I feel you. Like, I know when I pull in and I see clutter, it's hard to focus on my kids and my family and making dinner, because I'm like, oh, I got to go deal with that. And it's always looming. And maybe for some people, they don't care that it looms. It does for me. And maybe those people who think they don't care, it's impacting them and they don't even know it.
Yes.
So let's start where, let me ask you, where do you tell people to start?
That's a great question. Okay, a couple different things that have changed my declutter journey, and I think there's some immediate quick wins for both you and your listeners. Number one is to add or dedicate a specific bin, or it could be a trash bag in your home that is a permanent donation center. And what I love about adding this to your home and somewhere that's visible and accessible is it's a dedicated space, and it is a gentle reminder for you to declutter. And that really ties into the second strategy of it. And these changed my decluttering game as well. I created what are called clutter audits. Again, traditional advice is don't declutter until it's a problem, or don't declutter until you have the time to do it. No, that doesn't work for us, right? So clutter audits are the antithesis of that. They're micro declutter sessions that literally take seconds to just a few minutes. They can take as long as you want them, but that's like average span right there. You can work them into any day, no matter how busy you are, no matter how well or not well the baby slept last night, all the things. And you attach them, anchor them into habits you already have in your everyday routine. So think about cleaning up after, dinner. You can do a quick clutter audit in your silverware drawer. Maybe you have some half melted utensils, you have some duplicates you've been meaning to let go of. All the things, extra water bottles, things that you notice throughout your day you probably don't need, but now you've got a donation bag ready to go nearby, and you can quickly just plop the things into it. This has helped me let go of so much stuff. I've had so many students declutter their scary doom rooms, garages, kitchens, guest rooms that have turned from a guest room into a doom room, right? Where all the stuff goes, simply by doing a few things a day or clutter audits throughout their week. And it really proves that we don't need these huge amounts of time to make progress. And the same things, the clutter audits that I did to make progress, are the same things I'm doing to keep progress on the back end. And I think that is a really beautiful thing.
I love that. So a couple of things that you've said that I can relate to other podcasts and other topics. One is that it's a lifestyle, not just a one-time thing. And I interview a lot of health experts who will say, and I'm sure you've heard this, it's not the diet, it's the lifestyle. It's not that one time you're going to lose 10 pounds or whatever. It's a healthy lifestyle. And I'm hearing that from you too, of your life. And I love this concept of these mini audits because, I try before I go to bed to say, I'm going to put my kitchen to sleep. Like I want to walk down in the morning and feel good. I do the same thing when I go on vacation. Like I'm one of those,
yes,
I want to vacuum before I go on vacation because I
same,
don't want to come
I do.
home. And
Yes.
I know. And I don't always do it because I don't have the time, but I just want to come home and feel like, it feels good to be home and not, I'm home and now I have to do all the work. So, okay. So let's give a couple of more pieces of advice, if you would. I love this donation area. So a bin that lives somewhere that everybody knows. And then the clutter audit that can be I'm in the kitchen tonight. I'm just going to do this drawer, one thing.
Yeah,
and it's built in. Are you looking for ways to stay energized, healthy, and help your family stay healthy? I've started taking supplements from Seeking Health, and it has changed the game for me. I no longer worry that my family is getting enough of the vitamins we need, and I know the quality of what we're taking is top notch. I take an immunity support supplement, magnesium, and several others, including electrolytes to stay hydrated. So many people ask me about these supplements that I've made it really easy for you to find right on my website, natalietysdal.com/favorites. Also, bonus, I have a coupon code to help you save 10% on your order. You will find that coupon code on the website as well. Go to natalietysdal.com/favorites. Click on Seeking Health. I may earn a small commission if you purchase there, but that's just to help my small business grow, the website and the podcast, to keep this news and good interviews coming your way. Again, natalietysdal.com/favorites and click on Seeking Health.
Yeah. And don't even, try to force to go through a whole drawer. The idea is you're getting more comfortable, which goes a lot of our tendencies, dare I say perfectionistic tendencies, which is really rampant throughout the solutions provided in conventional organizing and conventional decluttering, but also just our culture, right? Perfectionism in so many ways. Do it right or don't do it at all. If I can't declutter the way I want to, then what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Procrastination. Right. So there's so many benefits to it. So that's really handling clutter. But then there's this other piece, which is the mess that comes from everyday life. This is what I call expected mess. And this can really throw people off because a great place, by the way, to start when it comes to decluttering, I love, if you just want to tackle anywhere right now today, any surface area, which is any horizontal surface in your home. So just think about the places things typically land: kitchen islands, kitchen counters, tables, kitchen tables, nightstands. All those things tend to be mess and sometimes clutter collectors. And so scooping off what doesn't belong and putting it away, That's expected mess. These are things that are used, but just weren't put away the first time, right?
Yeah.
And so there's these differences between expected mess and clutter. And I offer that because anytime I saw mess come back onto my counters, that again, it's going to happen to everyone. I don't care who you are. Mess is a part of life. I felt like a failure. And there's that shame piece again coming up for me going, gosh, wow, I can't figure this out. I just cleared. I spent 30 minutes clearing the counters and now there's sippy cups and dirty dishes. I stink at this. What's the point? And then we start going into these cycles. But once I realized mess is inevitable and the goal isn't to have a perfectly tidy home 24/7, that was revolutionary for me and so liberating. And that's when I was like, I came up with the concept of the good enough home. You don't need to have a perfect home in order to bless you and your family, right? We can even celebrate mess. I know some days it's really annoying, but to that effect, to solve expected mess. And really what I mean by that is to keep it to a minimum so the mess doesn't get overwhelming. So you've got clutter audits for clutter, and how I handle expected mess is through daily resets. Now, daily is in the word for a reason. It's helpful in a lot of expected mess hotspots to do it daily so it doesn't grow and get overwhelming. But you can do these weekly. For example, on my nightstand in my room, I do them weekly because we don't always put things back where they belong. We're not perfect. We're human. And so I'll spend 30 seconds once a week tackling my nightstand or my bathroom vanity. For busier spaces that a lot of, the family gathers, there's more volume of things like kitchen. Obviously doing that daily is going to really just reduce overwhelm and keep your home going in the right direction and just keep it feeling better.
Yeah. How do you keep your family on board with this? So we as moms can say, I'm doing this. I'm going to have this schedule. I'm going to do the audits. I'm going to have the bin. But how do you train your family, your kids and your husband to be on board with this?
I think one big thing I did early on is I didn't follow a lot of advice, which was given to me, which was just keep doing it on your, you're responsible for it as the mom in your home. So just keep doing it, because I didn't want to keep doing that because I was really resentful about it. And I didn't want to grow up being a resentful mom. Yeah. And it was important to me to foster a teamwork attitude. And so again, that's not an overnight. It's like it's not like you have one conversation and all of a sudden your kids and partner are like, yay, we're doing this. But really through things like family meetings, consistent family meetings, modeling what that looks like, actually teaching and supporting my kids through the process. For example, think about the times, I don't know if you've experienced this, where it's like your kids are a little bit older than mine, but where you're like, go clean your room. And your child might dig in their heels in some way, shape, or form. Well, a big part of why that happens is because we don't actually teach our kids that. We expect them to know how to clean their room, but maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they don't know where to start. Maybe they have stuff they don't want anymore and they don't know what to do with it, right? When I cleaned my room as a child, I put everything in the dirty hamper and thought that was cleaning my room. Yeah. I just gave my mom all the shove it under the bed. And so I know it sounds so simplistic, but it's like asking ourselves, have I actually talked and supported my kid through the process? Just like a coach would, while teaching a footballer to throw a ball. Like you have to practice, you have to be there next to your athlete or kid to walk them through that. Those have been really, really profound. And, from a really practical standpoint, I think giving your kids a zone in the home to be responsible for can create more confidence in that. I think it's more of a Scandinavian concept. I think it's more popular in homes to do this over there. But, you could assign my 9-year-old, his space is the living room, and my 7-year-old is the entryway. They're responsible for doing the resets there, as well as in their own bedrooms. And and it's the end goal is not for them to be like, yay, we're doing this. Sometimes they still complain about it. But it's given them more agency and confidence, and they really do feel like they're contributing. That is important, I feel like, for my kids to feel. And when they feel like they are making a difference, that's making us closer as a family. Yeah. This is opening up conversations we never would have had before.
Yeah,
So
I
it's,
love that concept. I
yeah,
think that's so smart. And it's also, it's kind of like when you're making dinner. Is everybody just going to wait for mom to cook it and set the table and sit down, and then all of a sudden
yes.
everybody come, whatever you're doing that's not, you're playing a video game or something, and like to be a part of this process does give them a sense of, I'm part of this family, I'm
Hmm.
responsible for something, and it lightens the load. And you talk about that resentment. If you're the only one, mom, doing it all, and I say this because I felt it, then you
Yes.
start to go, why am I doing this? And you do it, but then you start to feel underlying resentment. So great thing to teach your kids. And hopefully your husband jumps on board with it too, understanding that. I know that could be its own challenge. I want to dive to a different topic in this clutter scenario. And that is what we buy.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe the younger generation, and I say this again with kids, one who's 23, who doesn't want stuff. This younger generation, I might be generalizing too much here. The stuff isn't as important to them as it was to me, my generation. Of she'd much rather have an experience or a thing. But for us as moms, you know, buying kids clothes, buying helpful things around the house, those things add up. So how do you advise people on what to buy and to not buy so that we don't accumulate clutter?
Ooh, as a recovering shopaholic, I could answer
Mhm.
this in a whole lot of different ways. I think, of course, there are questions we could ask and pose to ourselves, especially when it comes to clothing, which, again, that was my main thing and how I brought a lot of clutter into my home. I still love clothes, even though I have a much smaller wardrobe. It's like you can take the girl out of I don't know the quote, but you can't take the love for clothing out of the girl, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so adding in pre-qualifications, do I already have something like this?
Mm.
Um, you know, is this a silhouette that I like? Is this a color I like? Does this go with 5 to 10 other things in my wardrobe? All the things. And I know that's wardrobe specific. But honestly, I think just, before you buy anything, it sounds so simple, but it's so effective. And I'm sure you've heard this and maybe used it, is just doing the 24 to 48-hour rule. Our brains, especially with technology and social media and the massive influx of ads we see on a day-to-day basis. I mean, studies show for many years it's been anywhere from 4 to 10,000. And there's also people who don't believe that. But I think when you bring in social media, both paid ads and then ads you're seeing that are kind of tucked in from like influencers or your favorite
Mhm.
fashion guru or whomever, I would say that's probably not too far off. And there's only so much we can take before we feel that pressure or
Yeah.
before we're like, ooh, I want that dopamine hit. It makes me feel good. And so simply adding to cart and not buying, or adding it to a notes tab in your phone and waiting 24 to 48 hours is so fruitful because it forces our brain to flex, like delaying gratification. And
Mm.
that, speaking to the roots of clutter and bringing clutter into our homes, is and just the culture we live in, that's
Yeah.
a muscle we need to get more comfortable flexing,
Boy,
right?
that is
And
so
building that
good.
resilience. And 9 times out of 10, sometimes 10 times out of 10, you'll come back to that list. It happened to me. It still happens to me. I'm like, I'll click on the link and I'll be like, I don't even like that. What was I
Mm.
thinking?
Yeah.
Obviously I
Yeah.
was under the influence. So
Mhm.
those are some practical ways.
Yeah, and shopping, like I've gotten, maybe you've heard this advice too. I literally ask myself, I was at the store yesterday and I saw some cool cleaning product and I thought, oh, that looks like it would really help me. And then I stopped and I went, do I want this or do I need this? And I
Oh,
go,
absolutely.
I kind of just want this. I really don't need it. I've got what I need. And I have to actually say those words in my head.
Yeah.
I might say it out loud in the store. People think I'm talking to myself, but I don't want the under cabinet of my sink to be cluttered. And sometimes it is because I buy everything I think is going to help me. And same thing with beauty products. I know you just talked about that on your podcast. Like we just keep buying and then we can't even find what we went looking for because there are so
Mhm.
many of these products under our bathroom sink or in our drawers. So I just wanted to touch on that because I feel like that's half the battle is
Yeah.
like you said, being a shopaholic.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because as consumers, which we will always be, right? We're
Yeah.
consumers always,
Yeah.
whether we live a simplified life or not. What we buy isn't really a product, right? What we are buying when we buy things or seek things out is some type of emotion, transformation, feeling. I want that luxury car so I can feel and look successful and be envied and all these things. I want this cleaning so I can, right, have the home of my dreams and my home to smell good and for people to walk into my home and feel welcome. It's a lot deeper than just a cleaning product or deeper than a car or deeper than a new pair of shoes, right? And so tying into just becoming more aware and looking for different patterns of things you were pausing, right? There is, again, beauty in the pause and going, what is it I'm really trying to buy here? Because some of the answers are pretty surprising. And once you dial into those and declutter that belief, that subconscious belief, and go, you know what? I don't want to believe that anymore. That's not true. I don't want to know. That's baloney. That's something I gained from culture, from my mom, from my whomever, someone I watch on Instagram. When we're able to declutter those beliefs and replace them with healthier ones that actually align with our core values, all of a sudden you don't need so much willpower and to avoid, to shop less, right? Because it's just intrinsic. And that builds your muscle, that flex muscle way quicker than even something simple like a 24-hour to 48-hour wait list.
Yeah. So much of decluttering is it's so psychological, isn't it? Like there's the first thing you said is it's what's in your head more often than anything else. Oh, I've learned so much. I think we need to do this again and pick some more topics because it's so helpful when you give examples. So we'll do it again and we'll come up with a new way. I want to talk about like cleaning out and what to do with stuff when you clean it, because that's what holds people back. So next time, let's see if we can do that. They think, well, I don't know what to do with this. It's valuable. Like, where do I go and give and donate or resell? So we'll plan that for next time. Where can people find you? I'll put some things in the show notes so they can follow you and get your advice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, come hang out on the podcast, Maximized Minimalist. I do weekly episodes there. And then my favorite social media platform is Instagram. So I love, connecting with people there and all that good stuff.
Terrific. Katy, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Natalie.